It was supposed to be a normal weekend adventure, just for friendly Merish, Farhan, and Sonna heading into the countryside for a photography project. The day was perfect, the air crisp and cool, and laughter echoed in the car as they drove deeper into the rolling hills. Everything was going great until it wasn't. The GPS suddenly died. The screen went blank. Their phone signals vanished completely, and without warning, a thick, heavy fog rolled over the road, swallowing the forest whole. "Maybe we should turn back," Miwish said, her voice a little shaky. But Ollie, always the adventurer, just shook his head. "No way. Let's keep going. There's probably a village or something just up ahead." A few tense minutes passed. Then Farhan spotted it, a narrow dirt path, almost hidden, curving off the main road. It looked ancient, forgotten. He pointed. "What about that? Let's check it out." The car jolted and bounced over rocks and roots as they ventured down the path. It led them deeper and deeper into an unnerving silence. Even the birds had stopped singing. The world seemed to be holding its breath. Finally, they came upon a decaying wooden sign, standing crookedly beside the road. Moss and grime covered most of the letters, but one word was still chillingly clear: "Welcome." Beyond it lay a village, cloaked in mist, silent and seemingly lifeless. The houses were made of dark stone and weathered wood. Roofs had caved in, and doors swung open and shut with the wind, groaning on their rusty hinges. A faint, unsettling smell of smoke lingered in the air. "Looks deserted," Sana whispered. But as they stepped out of the car, an invisible weight settled on them. It felt as if unseen eyes were watching them from the shadows. They moved through the narrow, empty streets, their cameras feeling heavy and useless in their hands. In the village center, they found an old, crumbling shrine surrounded by burned-out candles and piles of ash. Scrawled on the stone wall in what looked like red paint was a message: "They never left." Farhan let out a nervous laugh. Creepy. Probably just some kids messing around. But the unease was like a virus, spreading through all of them. The silence was wrong. No dogs barking, no birds chirping, not even the rustle of wind through the trees. Just absolute, profound stillness. They decided to snap a few quick pictures and get out before dark. But when they returned to where they'd parked the car, it was gone. The road they had driven in on had also vanished, completely erased by the thick, swirling fog. No matter which way they looked, there was no way out. Panic started to claw its way up their throats. They tried walking back in the direction they thought they'd come from, but every turn, every alley, somehow led them right back to the central square with that ominous shrine. The fog grew thicker, a suffocating blanket that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, darkness fell like a final curtain, swallowing the village whole. With no other choice, they sought shelter inside one of the abandoned houses. The air inside was freezing and stale, thick with the smell of dust and decay. Strange, complex symbols were carved into the walls, almost as if someone had been desperately trying to ward something off. A cracked mirror hung near the door, and beneath it sat a single half-melted candle. When Farhan lit it, The small flame didn't just flicker, it trembled violently, as if the very air in the room was breathing on it. And then they heard it. Footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps, just outside. 1, 2, then 3, then what sounded like dozens of them, shuffling through the dirt. Mewish crept to the window and gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Figures were moving in the fog. They were tall, pale, and hunched over, their movements unnatural and jerky. And their eyes glowed with a faint, predatory red light. They looked like villagers, Sana whispered, her voice barely audible and trembling with fear. In that instant, the candle flickered and died, plunging the room into absolute, terrifying darkness. Someone knocked on the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. A whisper slithered through the cracks in the wood. "You shouldn't have come." Ollie froze, his heart pounding against his ribs. The door handle began to turn, slowly, by itself. He lunged forward, shoving the door shut and leaning against it with all his weight. But the knocking turned into a furious pounding, getting harder and harder, shaking the entire frame. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice cracking. There was no replyingly. The sound of breathing, deep and raspy, right on the other side. Suddenly, the window shattered, spraying glass across the room. Through the broken frame, they saw faces peering, in gray, hollow, their mouths hanging open in silent, eternal screams. The friends screamed and scrambled, running blindly back out into the fog. But the streets had become a labyrinth, twisting and turning in impossible ways. Every lane they took, every corner they turned, led them right back to the shrine. Shadowy figures crawled along the rooftops, whispering their names on the wind. Alim, Wish, Farhan, Sana tripped, falling hard near the base of the shrine. As Ollie reached down to help her up, the ground beneath her began to move. A hand pail, rotten and caked with soil, burst from the earth and clamped around her ankle. Then another appeared, and another. Faces began to push through the dirt, their eyes empty sockets, their skin torn and decaying. The dead were rising from the ground. Ollie screamed and pulled her free, and they ran. But Farhan stumbled and fell behind them, letting out a choked cough. When Ollie risked a glance back, Farhan was gone, vanished. Only the swirling fog remained where he had stood just a second before. The whispers grew louder, echoing from every wall, every shadow. "Stay with us. Stay forever." The fog itself began to glow with a faint, pulsating red light, like a monstrous heartbeat. The shrine seemed to burn with an invisible fire, and the air filled with the sickening stench of smoke and decay. A woman's voice rose from the flame, soft, broken, and full of sorrow. "You came back," it said. From the mist, a figure emerged, a woman with long, stringy black hair and gray, leathery skin. Her mouth was sewn shut with crude black thread, but her voice echoed directly inside their heads. Her eyes were pure white, endless voids of despair. She floated toward them. The village never forgets. Ollie grabbed Sanaa's hand and just ran, blindly, desperately, through the suffocating fog. For what felt like an eternity, they stumbled over stones and roots, chased by the whispers and the grasping shadows. And then, Suddenly light, the fog thinned, and they burst out onto the main road. Their car was sitting right there, headlights on, the engine still running, as if they had never left it at all. They scrambled inside and drove, not saying a word, not daring to look back. When they finally reached the city, the sun was breaking over the horizon. None of them ever spoke about what happened that night. But a week later, Miwish woke in the middle of the night to a strange sound, shuffling footsteps just outside her bedroom door. The air in her apartment smelled faintly of burned wood. On her bathroom mirror, a message had been written in a fine layer of ash. "Welcome back." The next morning, she was gone. Only her phone remained on her nightstand, its audio recorder playing a loop of faint whispering and the sound of a door slowly creaking open. Locals in that area tell an old story. They say there once was a real village in those hills, a place destroyed long ago by a terrible fire after a witch's curse spread death and madness among its people. No map shows its location now, but some travelers, those who get lost deep in the forest when the fog grows thick, say they sometimes see a mossy old sign appear through the mist. It says only one word: welcome. And if you're foolish enough to keep driving toward it, you'll find the road never ends, because the Forgotten Village is always waiting for new visitors. Thanks for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoy stories that linger in the shadows of your mind, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there, and maybe stick to the main roads.